I hope you're all okay and all good. Welcome to another video. My name is George. For those of you who don't know, feel free to subscribe down below if you're not already. And this is my reading resolutions for 2021. That's right, we're going to take one last look back into the vortex, into the hellscape that was 2020, to reflect, to think of what we want to do more of next year and less of next year. Well, this year now, I guess, the time this video is going up. And just generally to think about what we want to do in terms of our reading lives. I think in 2020, you sort of fell into one of two camps when it came to how your reading was going. You were either a big reader and the lockdown kind of drove you to reading like tons more books than normal, or it really cut you down and you didn't read quite as much as you wanted to. Because of various reasons, because not everyone can focus on a book when the world feels like it's falling apart. For some people it's a nice distraction, for others not so much. For me, I ended up reading 46 books in 2020, and I'm quite pleased with that total given the fact that the year before that, when I was doing my master's degree, I barely read anything. So despite the fact that I probably intended to read way more than I actually did read this year, I ended up reading a fair amount and quite a few books. If you've watched my best books of 2020 video, you will have seen that I've read some really great books and was very lucky to kind of fall into those ones in a weird way, I guess. I also had a book out in 2020, which, I mean, that was a pretty big distraction. I don't think I read anything in August really, because I was just panicking about people reading this. And it's sort of weird to kind of be going into 2021 knowing that unless something major changes, I don't have a book coming out this year. So it's kind of weird. I'm just like working on stuff. It's very strange. I don't know, because I think if you'd have asked me that back in March, I probably would have been like, oh yeah, sure, I'll have a book out in 2021 as well. But if 2020 has taught us anything, is that things never turn out quite like you planned them. Anyway, that's not what this video is about. I'm not a big New Year's resolution kind of person, because I'm very much of a mind that if you want to change something, change it. You don't need to wait until the first day of a new year to kind of like set yourself a bunch of new goals. You can do it whenever. I do like to make lists every now and again. I made a list on my 29th birthday of things that I want to do while I'm 29, and I've written a couple of things down in terms of reading resolutions, because it does feel like the start of a new reading year, at least because there are new books coming out this year, etc. So I have made a list of a few things that I want to read more of in 2021, and I thought I would share them with you, and then you can share yours with me in the comments and we can talk about it, because that's fun. So the first reading resolution for 2021, and this is a broad one: read more. Professional. As I said, I read 46 books in 2020, and while that is actually quite a big amount of books, that's almost a book every single week, there have been years in the past when I've read upwards of like 130 books, and there's so many books that I just didn't get to that I really wanted to read last year. So in that respect, I'm sort of disappointed in the amount that I read. So in 2021, I would like to read more, and I think some of that will come from me actually making the time to read rather than choosing to like work on my own stuff or stay on my phone until the early hours of the morning instead of going to sleep. I find reading is a really nice thing to do before I go to bed, and I would like to do more of that as well. So I think it's going to be, if you've watched any of my videos in the past, you know that I like to schedule my days because I'm a self-employed person for the most part. So I like to kind of figure out what I'm going to do. And I think part of that should be scheduling maybe an hour to read a day, like whether it's over a lunch break or whether it's just an hour in the afternoon where I sit down and I read. Either way, I want to read more, and actually kind of setting time aside to do it feels like it might be the way to go about that. So that's thing number one. Thing number two: read more middle grade. I used to be a much bigger reader when it came to children's fiction as a whole. I used to read YA and I used to read middle grade. I used to read even younger fiction than that. I used to read a lot of picture books as well. And in the last few years, I think because of limited time to read, the things that I've been reading, it's become a lot slimmer. So I'm either reading like grown-up queer books or I'm reading YA queer books, and that's kind of it. So I think what I want to do in 2021 is that I want to branch out into more middle grade. If you watch my most anticipated reads of 2021, you'll have seen that I put Me, My Dad and the End of the Rainbow by Benjamin Dean and The Strange Worlds Travel Agency by L.D. Lipinski, the sequel, Edge of the Ocean. I have the first one up on my shelf here. I put both of those on as my most anticipated, and that's sort of part of me wanting to read more middle grade. I have a bunch of middle grade on my shelves that I really want to read. Some of it is stuff that I want to reread. We'll come on to that in a minute, but I want to read more of it. There's some incredible stuff happening in middle grade. I have friends that write in middle grade. I want to read more middle grade. Have I made that clear? I think I have. The next thing is read more of what I have. I am somewhat sick of myself and the fact that I have so many unread books on my shelves. I don't have a huge amount of space in the room that I have, and I have a lot of books behind me, and a lot of them are unread, and yet I'm still buying more books. One, I'm talking to myself here, but I can't afford to keep doing that. I need to stop doing that. And there are so many of these books that I have bought and been like, I really want to read this book. And then I've just not got round to reading it. Or I've had books sent to me by publishers and they're books that I've been excited about and then I've just not got round to reading them. Fortunately, since I've sort of left my more bloggy days, booksellery days behind, I'm not being offered so much stuff. So in a way that's easier because a lot of the stuff I'm being sent is unsolicited, which means I feel slightly less guilty. But even so, there are so many books on these shelves that I have been sent or books that I have bought that I have been excited for at point of purchase or opening the envelope, and I've just sort of left them. And I think reading more in 2021 will inspire that. And I think I want to read more of what I have on these shelves to become a much more rounded, well-read human being. This also goes to like the adult books that I have as well. I would like to read more of those because I have those in my cupboard, and a lot of the other books that I've acquired over the years that I haven't got rid of during book culling sessions, because there's been many of those that I now need to kind of like get to. Do you know what I mean? The next thing, and I told you I was going to come onto this, and that is to reread more and not feel bad about it. I know I've just said that I need to read more of what I have. Yes, I do want to do that. But books that I have decided to keep, that I have read 5, 10 plus years ago that I still have, I've kept them for a reason. And there are books that I know that I want to reread. Like, I want to reread a series of Unfortunate Events again because I never got to the end when I did that series years and years ago. I also want to watch the Netflix series because I still never finished that. I want to reread the Spiderwick Chronicles. There are books that I read that turned me into a reader that I want to go back to and read again. And I made a video about books that I reread and actually how bad that makes me feel because there are all these unread books on my shelves. And I shouldn't feel bad about it because no one is dictating what I should and shouldn't read. No one is watching me saying, why are you rereading that when you've got unread books on your shelves? The only person that's doing that to me is me. So I need to shut up and stop doing that. And there are also books on my shelves that I will point to and be like, this is one of my favorite books ever, but I've not read it in like 5 years, 6 years, longer. And I think it'd be a good thing to sort of like refresh my memory of those books that I've loved so much. So that's the thing that I want to do. It's not going to be as big as like wanting to read the unread things that I have, but like if I want to do some videos where I'm talking about the Spiderwick Chronicles, for example, which is a series that I loved when I was younger, I shouldn't feel bad about the fact that I'm rereading that and talking about it. And the same with if I do a series of Unfortunate Events again. I shouldn't feel bad about doing that because, and here's the thing that I learned when I was in publishing, backlist to you is someone else's front list. So if someone hasn't read something before, that's their front list. That makes sense. So front list being like new titles that are released, backlist being like titles that have been released in previous years. So to someone who has not read a book before, that is their front list. So if I'm talking about the Spiderwick Chronicles and it's something that one of you hasn't read before and I just so happen to introduce you to it, that becomes your front list. And then the transition of recommendations continues. See what I mean? Anyway, that's a whole big thing that I need to stop talking about and need to stop feeling guilty about because I can read whatever the heck I want. And last but by no means least, the biggest thing that I want to do in 2021 is to read more diversely. I think over the years I've gotten better when it comes to my diverse reading. I'm more aware of the kind of books that I'm picking up, of the kind of books I'm purchasing, of the kind of books that I'm choosing to read. I think I became more acutely aware of it in 2020, and I think it's something that I need to keep myself in check about because I've said this before on this channel, and that is that I need to read more than just gay romances when it comes to reading diversely, because if you're just reading gay romances written by white gays, you're not reading diversely. You're part of the problem. And in the past couple of years, I've taken steps to improve that. I have read beyond that, but I think I can still do better. I want to continue to read more diversely in 2021. I have books on my shelves. I have books on my most anticipated list of things that I want to read that will help that along. Books that I'm incredibly excited for. And some of the books that I read in 2020 because I wanted to read more than gay male romances all the time are some of my favourite books that I read last year. And I think you will find new favourites if you look beyond yourself. And I don't think that's a controversial thing to say. I think we can all stand to do a bit better when it comes to that, because if you are just reading male romances, that is obviously your prerogative, absolutely, but you can't then say that you're reading diversely because you're not. You're reading male romances. That's not diverse, that's one thing. Do you see what I mean? Yes, it's not straight, but it is still just one thing. Do you see where I'm going with this? So whether it's own voices or not own voices, I want to read more queerly and I want to read more broadly. I want to continue to do that, and I have the books on my shelves to do it. So yeah, but I don't just mean that in terms of sexuality. I also mean that in terms of the ethnicities of the authors that I read. I became more aware of it this year that my reading was way too white and I need to do better. And for the latter half of the year, I did. And I need to continue to do that and continue to be aware of what I am reading and the books that I'm consuming and the books that I am then talking about as well. Just casually calling myself out on that one. But I think we all need to do that every year. I do think if you are a reader and you are a reviewer and you are putting these things out into the world, I think you have a responsibility to read broadly and not just read narrowly. Narrow reading, is that a thing? Anyway, that kind of went into a weird direction, but that is the end of this video. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, don't forget to put a thumb on it and subscribe down below if you want to see more. Feel free to let me know in the comments below what your reading resolutions for 2021 are. I hope you have had a lovely festive period and you had a lovely, safe new year. A random resolution I have is to continue to make videos and to not take massive breaks like I did in 2020. But we'll see how that goes, because I think that's been a resolution every year I've had this channel, and every year I've had this channel, I have failed. If you made it this far in the video, feel free to leave me the fireworks emoji in the comments below. Fireworks, new year. You see where I'm going. That is the end of this video. Thank you so much for watching. I love each and every one of your faces, and I'll speak to you as soon as I possibly can. Bye!